10 hours a month, 10 hours a month and have a controlling interest of the company. But a lot of them walk in thinking that that might be reasonable. And they talk them into maybe including the graduate student in some of the equity so that that person could become a founder and really drive it. And then Innovation Center for the Rockies also coaches entrepreneurs for us on how to form a good relationship with the inventor group, which is so critical, and a lot of the nuances around that. So we found in our experience, seeing the startup process work, that this is some of the big challenges and the reason that we work with Innovation Center of the Rockies to help us along. Yeah.
So I kind of have the sense that your days are reasonably full with the task set that you have.
Of course, of course.
So kind of my question is, what are you doing to, or are you doing anything, or what do you wish you could do to prepare faculty members to look for the commercializable technology that they might be working with?
And there's, if you go down, Tim, can you go down a couple of slides? Keep control. I'll just tell you, keep on going, keep on going. Oh, you're going up. One more. Okay, so this is represents all the things that we have to do here. And then the red are the things that we do that really impact startups. We have to do licensing really well in order to give the community an idea that they can work with us and it won't be too painful. Business development, education, and communication, these are the pieces that can really move the needle on startup development. And this we basically outsource to Innovation Center for the Rockies. And then, the other piece that I kind of threw in there with business development is proof of concept stage funding, which I kind of neglected due to time constraints today. But we have a state program that helps fill in for that in the biosciences area. And then education and communication is key to get the graduate students and the faculty exposed to what it means to start a company so that they can have better skills at recognizing opportunities in their lab for commercialization. And we do that through on-campus seminars every now and then. We're not the greatest educators. We're trained as licensing professionals. We're not that good at educating people. So, we do have a lot going on in entrepreneurship on campus, in the business school, in the law school, hold numerous seminars and workshops around that subject. And we try to encourage our faculty to go to those. But these are the things that can really help. And, these are the things that the city can help with as well in order to encourage entrepreneurship.
And sort of the last question, could we have your slide deck?
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
don't have a problem with that. Of course, it's all made up data as
All
I
the better.
explained.
All the better.
Okay.
Okay, just send it to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, are any parts of the operations of the technology transfer office supportable by outside grants? Or is it all sort of internally generated funds that supports the office? I'm just trying to think, how many lawyers do you have that are reviewing things, or do you have a budget to be able to use lawyers on the outside to negotiate, to do prosecution? How can it be funded if it's not under the direct budget of the university?
Yeah, that's a real challenge. How do you fund technology transfer at a public institution that does not have enough money to fund just very basic things? Yeah, it's a huge problem. We fund ourselves out of royalties, which is very challenging. To get enough royalties to cover what we're allowed to keep 25% of the royalties to fund our operations. And it's a huge challenge to fund our operations out of just the royalties.
But none
So-
of the hundreds of millions of dollars of research grants and other sponsored research is allowed to be used for any of this, which we've seen.
It's allowed to be used, but how are you going to fund we have so much overhead, and so how is the institution going to fund very basic things like keeping the lights on, if they're going to spend it on
So
technology
it's
transfer?
a priorities question.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the state is now looking at putting money into technology transfer more directly. They may encourage us to go for money that would help us. Right now, we put money towards Innovation Center of the Rockies. The state may encourage us to put in a grant that would allow us to, fund Innovation Center for the Rockies through that. I think there's certainly a lot of room for public funds to be used on these activities here. But most public funding is not gonna, state and local funding is not gonna help us take care of just general business.
Hey, you and Tim made a collaborative question. We looked at a model, actually someone presented a model, that would be similar, I think, how the Innovation Center for the Rockies work, but we got hung up somewhat on the business development piece,
Uh-huh.
because often that just is enough to kind of explore the feasibility of creating a company, and maybe take it to a level that it might be acquired or actually form a company. And understanding, we work with, do you license that IP to the Innovation Center for that time period? Or how does it work at that point? Because that became the real problems, that the campus could not gift this IT, even for a short period,
Uh-huh.
as they did some of the business development.
Tim, do you wanna come up and start
Well,
answering questions?
That's a complicated question. So I'm not sure, there's a lot of elements to the question that you're asking. And I can tell you kind of for the past 5 years how we've approached it. We've approached it because we have these 1,500 advisors. And as I mentioned last night, when we get down to, when we expose the advisors to the technology and the advisors get excited about it, that excitement is really kind of, the brass tacks of that excitement is whether or not they're willing to commit to a sweat equity startup. So we kind of overcome the lack of money by a high degree of equity available to the founders of the company, which may include faculty and it may not include faculty. It kind of depends on what they want to do and what they agree to. But we kind of put in front of them a hurdle of taking the company to funding through sweat equity. And we try to find people that are capable of doing that. Now, we've organized a group of people in this community that have the capability and the interest of doing that. Not all communities have that asset to leverage. So I don't know about Santa Cruz. Certainly you have that in Silicon Valley. So, but I don't know what you have in Santa Cruz. And that would be a really important question on that side of it, because we can, and what we put in front of the advisors when they get to a startup is a really high hurdle. So we say, we want 50% of your time, sweat equity for up to 2 years, committed to this project. And they have to convince Kate and the faculty that they're willing to do that. And that's really hard. That's why 1 out of 10 crosses that. So it's a really difficult hurdle, but that's our way of achieving a startup without money, which is what we're trying to do. Now we have other things going on that are even earlier in the process that we're starting to explore, bringing the IP into a holding entity, and then having that to use that equity. It's really a future equity assignment, so it gets kind of tricky legally. And I'm not sure that the university is really nervous about that. And we haven't implemented it, so we're kind of like we're kind of in a process of figuring out, what can we deliver in value, and does that make the university happy, and we're actively working on that. So, but that's different than forming a company. It's a little bit of a different approach.
Do you want to move on to the
Yeah.
ICR?
Any other questions
piece
for
of
Kate?
the-
Okay. So,
Okay, thanks everybody.
Kate, thank you. So you get a special
Oh,
prize.
good. Thank
Your
you.
very own Santa Cruz cutting board.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I love it, thank you.
It was great. Thank you so much.
So we have a choice here. So we have an hour left. We want to finish by 5. We don't have to finish by 5, but you guys have had a long day, and I think you probably want to finish by 5. So what we have to cover yet is really what we started talking about in terms of the Innovation Center of the Rockies. And so I have like 5 slides here, and then I want to turn it over to Eric. Where's Eric? He was here.
He just stepped out for a
He just
second.
stepped out, so he's the guy that was sitting right there, and he's going to talk about more of the operational side. So he and I are the 2 full-time people that work for the ICR, and we have like 5 other program managers, which I'll describe. So do you want to kind of go for the finish line, or do you want to take a break now for a few minutes? What do you want to do?
I say go. Do it.
Push forward.
Okay, so that being the case, I need to pull up my slide deck.
This stuff seems particularly useful because it's at a simple enough conceptual level and still asks questions. What is it that we wish we might do? And I like that slide deck.
Okay, so here we go. I can do this. Ta-da. Okay, good. So I have this. Can I say do page down? Okay. Can't do both. So I sent you a soft copy of this. So this is going to be a little bit of repetition from what I talked about last night. And this is for your benefit, so please ask me questions. Okay, so this is the history. We talked about that last night. I joined in 2007. I was the CEO of a startup company, came from Silicon Valley here to do the internet, an internet bubble kind of company. And I didn't know that at the time, of course. But then I found myself in 2001 transitioning out of that because the market collapsed, and I did a bunch of other things here. And in 2007, I saw an opportunity to run this organization. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, that sounds really cool. I was really interested in university technology commercialization, so I said, let's go do it. So in 2007, I started, and then in 2008, the financial crisis hit. And the funding model of the organization back in time was kind of philanthropic. It was, we're doing good things, give us money, basically. And the people that were willing to give us money in 2005 kind of went away in 2008, right? And so we were like, oh crap, are we going to shut this down? What are we going to do? And so I kind of talked to the board and said, the thing that we're uniquely doing is we're making a big difference on the commercialization of university technology. And guess what? We have 3 other universities in Colorado, and then, maybe 100 universities in the rest of the U.S., that if we can figure out how to do this, that's a much more confident way of making a sustainable organization. So off to the races we went. And then we put on School of Mines in 2010, and then Colorado State, which I know you're going to tomorrow, they're under contract with us since 2012, and then University of Denver, which is a private institution, which is also different. And then we're also have another thing related to the question that you asked, which is we're in a different situation here than you are, but you have some other concerns about it, in that we have about $700 million coming into the state, $1 billion worth of federal R&D funding all into the state. About $700 million of that is bio. So that's by far the biggest thing that we have going. And the problem is, if you look at the startups coming up from $700 million a year, most people would be disappointed in that, right? It's just like, come on, we got to do better. And it turns out that this is an incubator that is built on the Anschutz campus. And we have our goal there is to, how do we create exciting projects that will attract investors from Sand Hill Road and from Boston. And so we have something that's even a little different. But I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to focus on the university side. That's the bulk of what we do right now. We're set up as a nonprofit. A C6 is, a C3 is like the Humane Society Red Cross. It's a charity. What we do is not considered charitable by the IRS. So we're more like a chamber of commerce, so we're a C6. But the interesting thing about it is we don't have a facility, so we're not like an incubator. We don't take any equity or charge success fees. Our university relationship is a retainer relationship. They pay us for chunks of time from our program managers, which I'll describe what that is. And so when we engage with the faculty at the university, all the universities, we're engaging with them and it's not costing them anything. That's really important. If we had to charge them faculty by faculty, it would be a non-starter. But we focus our energy on forming a relationship with the Tech Transfer Office. Kate, form a relationship with her, treat her like a customer, and then work on the projects that she thinks that we can help commercialize or form startups with. I'll show the results. We report the results once a year. We're a really lean organization, and I'll show that in a few slides. It's Eric and I. Eric is the gentleman right here that'll be talking in a minute. And then we have 6 program managers. And the program managers are really key in this because for us, like we have a relationship with CSU, which is in Boulder and Fort Collins are kind of competitors, and CSU and CU are kind of competitors. And so it took us a long time to convince them to contract with an organization in Boulder. They didn't really want to do that. It took a long time. But the way we got through that is we actually put a program manager into their tech transfer office. So they feel like it's their resource. They pay us, we pay them, but it's the person that's in their tech transfer office, and they have the benefit of all of our resources and expertise. And so that was a key way that we've been able to kind of plant program managers in all the different universities and scale. So, next slide. I talked about this last night. All you research universities have the same problem. The amount of patents generated outpaced the rate of licensing by about 10 to 1. I think CU's number was 5 to 1. So that's a little better than what I was anticipating, but the general number is 10 to 1. So the research universities are generating tons of research, but as you heard from Kate and from the other administrators at CU, the reward system is not in place to reward commercialization. The reward system is in place for them to get stature and tenure from publication. And so the real logical conundrum here is that we have all this money, so to speak, going into research into the universities. We're all trying to get jobs and companies created, but yet the reward mechanism inside the university is not aimed at creating jobs. It's just not. And so what we have to do is we have to kind of figure out how do we engage with the faculty in a way that the faculty feels like they're continuing to contribute, it's their baby, and so that they feel really good about interacting with us and working with us. And that's what we focused on and been optimizing for 5.5 years, and we still have a ways to go, but we're pretty far down the line. So the thing that we do is we go and sell this to the research, usually it's the tech transfer office or the administration of the university, that we can really help move the needle in terms of commercialization. And then we turn around and at the same time we're bringing in members of our entrepreneurial community. So today we have 1,500 resumes on file. And these resumes are people that we've met with for 2 to 3 hours. We've got their resumes and we qualify them for PhDs and master's degrees and just a whole range of technical disciplines. We bring those advisors together. We have them meet with the faculty, understand, they're very credible. We show the faculty their resumes, so these guys are and gals are very credible. And what we try to do is get the advisors to understand the technology and answer the question of what customer problem is solved by that research. Usually that's the first time anybody has ever had that discussion with a faculty, and like 9 out of 10 times. Because that's not what they do. They're being rewarded, they get grants to push forward the frontiers of science. They're rewarded for their publications and to be the expert in that field, but they really don't have an idea of what customer problem is out there. And those of you that are entrepreneurs realize that without kind of making this translation between the research to the customer problem, you have nowhere to go. So we use our advisors to really understand whether or not that was there a question back there?
Yeah. Was there ever any thought of merging the technology transfer office and your organization?
Yeah, and
within the university?
that's pretty common. That's pretty common, but if we did that, why don't you push the next slide? I'll just jump to that one. Okay, so that's pretty common, right? If you look around, just talking to, I won't name the university, a big institution in Texas, part of the Texas system. And they have its Office of Technology Commercialization, right? And so it's combined. And they've had such poor results on the commercialization side that they said, forget the commercialization, we're spending money, we're not getting any results, we're just going to do licensing, which is similar to what Kate just described. And so the problem is once you capture the business development function, the commercialization function, inside the university, it will start taking on the personality of the university. And I've worked with 4 universities. You do not want entrepreneurship in terms of forming startups controlled by the university. It's just the culture's wrong. It's just the wrong decision. It's the wrong solution to the problem. And so what we do is we have figured out how to operate in harmony and with friendly relationships because we treat them as our customer. And we try to do that, but then we translate between the research, which is what the university is really good at, and the faculty, and the entrepreneurs, which generally speaking, really find it difficult to work with the university because the university culture and speed is just, they're doing it for sweat equity. They don't want to waste their time with the university bureaucracy because, you know, it's their time and their money. And so I think that the commercialization is better served outside the university. Now there are MIT and Stanford, there are places that do more of that internally. But and many organizations approach it that way, but from the discussions I've had nationally, most research universities that do that internally are very dissatisfied with the return on investment. I think for the reasons that I stated. Okay? The other thing is if we were part of the University of Colorado,